So you want to know what the best gear and pets are in Archero? Well, you've come to the right place. If you haven't watched my weapon tier list, I highly recommend watching that one before this video. There will be a link in the description box below. In this video, we'll be going through the pros and cons, best scenarios and tips for each armor, pets and rings. It's good to note that depending on what weapon you use or what kind of playstyle you have, this could very much vary. I'll be going through this based on my opinion on what I believe is the strongest. At the time of this video, I am level 51, I main the Death Scythe, and I'm up to chapter 7 in Archero. Since I have not passed chapter 7 yet, I cannot speak for what's best for chapters beyond 7. We'll be going through this based on the epic stats. First, let's talk about spirits, also known as pets. In Archero, we all have the chance to receive a spirit and have been granted 2 slots for 2 different spirits or 2 same spirits. But each spirit does something different and they all do something useful for different situations. This can also depend on what type of weapon you're using. Coming in 4th place on the tier list is the Living Bomb. The Living Bomb throws bombs that deal splash damage and it has low attack speed. The pros of the Living Bomb: because the Living Bomb throws their attacks, they can go over walls and obstacles. This makes it nice for hard to reach places. Since it deals splash damage, it's good for bunched up monsters. The cons: the low attack speed makes it very weak against quick enemies. The area of explosion is pretty small. Coming in 3rd and 2nd place on the tier list is the Scythe Mage and the Elf Fairy. I couldn't put a single placement for these two as they're both great in their own way, and it really depends on what you need on that chapter. Let's begin with the Scythe Mage. Like the Grim Reaper in Archero, he can slice through enemies with his sharpened scythe. The pros: it has a piercing effect, which means it can hit multiple enemies in a row. This is great for chapters with lots of enemies such as the wave chapters. The damage is very high. This is very strong in chapters 3 and 6, very strong in chapter 7. The cons: the attacks are easily stopped by obstacles, so it can be pretty weak in levels and chapters with a lot of them. The attacks can also be a bit slow. The Elf, however, is Elf of the Dark Forest and she fires projectiles. The pros: her projectiles are fast. She's great on single target chapters, which means she's great for bosses. This particularly helps in later chapters. The Elf has a knockback on her projectiles. This is great if you're also running the Tornado, which has 0 knockback. This can be strong in chapter 7. The cons: she's very weak against levels and chapters with a lot of obstacles, just like the Grim Reaper. Coming in 1st place on the tier list is the Laser Bat. A bat from a mysterious cave. Its lasers could easily penetrate obstacles. The pros: strong in chapters and levels of obstacles, and there is a lot of them in Archero. Due to this perk, other pets can slightly lack to the bat due to not being able to reach some enemies. He hits pretty fast. It hits all enemies in the path of its line. The cons of the bat: the weakest attack in the game, but if your other pets can't reach the target anyway, then there isn't any damage coming from them either. So in conclusion, all the spirits in Archero have their strengths and weaknesses. However, I have to give the crown to the Laser Bat here. I would invest into any of the last 3 spirits that you prefer. I just have to say that the Spirit Bomb is just lacking in comparison to the other spirits. The Living Bomb is what I used to use before I swapped pets in Archero, and there was a really huge difference once I changed to the Laser Bat. Next stop, the rings. Every common ring has a unique ability. Every rare ring obtains a unique ability. Every epic ring obtains a common ability, plus 10% coins obtained. It's good to note that boss type monsters are not considered as melee nor ranged, but are still considered as ground or flying, which means wolf and snake rings do not deal additional damage to bosses, while the bear and falcon ring do. So coming in 4th place on the tier list is the wolf ring. With a unique base effect of increased damage to melee units and a unique rare effect of 5% increased crit rate, this puts the wolf ring in the 4th spot. The pros: it does increase damage to melee monsters. This can be good with the Tornado at times since there is no knockback on the Tornado. The crit can work nicely with the Brave Bow due to the weapon's crit passive. The cons: the melee monsters aren't a super huge deal in comparison to the ranged monsters. They're usually the first ones you kill since they're closer to you, unless they're the monsters that don't chase you. In conclusion for this ring, I would consider this ring if you're running with the Brave Bow and you want to stack the crit passives. However, Archero devs, I believe, have not fixed the major crit ability, so I just don't think it's viable at the moment. Coming in third place on the tier list is the Bear Ring. With a unique base effect of increased damage to ground units and a unique rare effect of increased 5% HP, this puts the Bear Ring in third place. The pros: you deal increased damage to ground units, which makes up of some of the ranged monsters and all of the melee monsters. This paired up with the Falcon Ring means you can deal increased damage to all monsters. The cons: 5% HP increase is not that much honestly. As you get further in Archero, it doesn't really make a huge difference. Let's say you have 1000 base HP. 5% of that is 50 HP. That's really not a lot at all. Maybe it can help you in rare case scenarios where you're 1 HP away from death with the last boss, but I honestly wouldn't use a ring slot on this ring based on that hope. Coming in on second place on the tier list is the Falcon Ring. With a unique base effect of increased damage to flying units and a unique rare effect of 5% increased attack speed, this puts the Falcon Ring in the second spot. The pros: it deals increased damage to flying units. It has a unique rare effect of increased attack speed, so if you have double Falcon Rings, you could have 10% increased attack speed. This can work particularly nice with the Death Scythe, which has the slowest attack speed in Archero. Due to the increased damage to the flying units, it can help with some of the most obnoxious monsters like the Grim Reaper. The cons: due to only increasing damage to flying units, it means it doesn't cover a lot of the monsters. And finally, in first place, the Serpent Ring. With a unique base effect of increased damage to ranged units and a unique rare effect of 5% increased dodge rate, this puts the Serpent Ring in the top spot. The pros: due to the dodge passive, this makes double Serpent Rings and Vest of Dexterity the most viable item combination in Archero at the moment. The increased dodge rate gives you a higher chance of avoiding an attack completely. So if you're against a boss that does 1000 plus damage on you, that dodge passive makes it extremely worth it, and it actually happens quite often. It deals increased damage to ranged units, and in Archero, we deal with a lot of ranged units and they seem to be the most problematic in the game. The cons: you are just relying on a chance here, and sometimes it just feels pretty risky, but when it happens, it's pretty great. Now last but not least, let's talk about armor. All epic armor pieces have a base health of 566, and a healing effect of the red heart increased by 20%. Now remember, this armor tier list is based on their epic stats. This tier list was really hard to put together, and in all honesty, it comes down to playstyle. In this armor tier list, the conclusion resulted from a combination of my own experience, research, and other people's opinions. Because I put something first or last, it doesn't mean it's 100% the best, and what rings you are equipped with also plays a role in what armor is the best for you. Coming in fourth place on the tier list is Phantom Cloak. With a unique base effect of 10% decreased damage from projectiles, and a unique epic effect of freezing enemies who hit you and dealing thorn damage, this puts the Phantom Cloak in last place. Now the projectile resistance of 10% is nice since in Archero, there are a ton of monsters who can quickly hurt and kill us with the touch of a little flying ball. Because of this, I believe the tier of this armor is higher in rare and below. But why I put this armor piece in fourth place is, well, once you upgrade it to epic, the combat effect is just not that great, and honestly, in my opinion, the other armor pieces can do more. The pros: it can sometimes save you. Since it freezes the enemies or monsters that have hit you, it can give you time to position yourself better or run away. It can take some monsters out of the fight for a couple of seconds. This means less monsters, so you can focus on hurting or killing what you can in that time period. With that being said, it gives you an extra few hits. Just say you were fighting a boss and this boss happens to hit you while they're frozen, you can hit them a few more times without worrying about taking damage. When a monster is frozen from your Phantom Cloak, they also take some thorn damage. Now the projectile resistance is also nice because in Archero, a majority of the attacks are projectiles. The cons: for most of these pros to work, it requires you to be hit. It's just not worth getting a few hits in yourself at the expense of your health, and some attacks can do some major damage. It's not a combat effect you can rely on. In Archero, you want to practice your hand coordination and avoiding monster attacks. You basically never want to be hit at all in the game if possible. In conclusion, Epic Phantom Cloak is good for players who get hit a lot, have trouble with avoiding attacks, and need that extra effect and assistance. Now coming in third place is the Golden Chestplate. With a unique base effect of reduced 5% damage taken and a unique epic effect of dealing tick damage by fire to nearby enemies, this places Golden Chestplate in the third spot. The pros: you do take 5% reduced damage from all sources. You deal tick damage to any monsters that get close to you. The cons: you have to be close to the monsters for the unique passive to have an effect. The 5% reduced damage doesn't make a huge difference. So a typical high level boss can deal 1500 damage if you're not very well equipped. This only results in taking 75 damage less. Coming in second place is the Void Robe. With a unique base effect of 10% reduced damage from collisions and a unique epic effect of poisoning all enemies upon entering a room, this puts the Void Robe in second place on the tier list. The pros: you'll receive 10% less damage from a collision. Once entering a room, you'll poison all monsters in that level. I find this passive particularly nice as I recently tested it in Chapter 7. It's extremely nice for those monsters you cannot reach, as it poisons all enemies no matter where or how far they are. This passive is the best epic armor effect of all the armor pieces. The cons: I feel that the collision damage is the least most likely to happen in Archero in comparison to getting hit by a projectile, so this effect is not the most useful. And in the top spot in Archero for the best armor piece is the Vest of Dexterity. With a unique base effect of 7% increased dodge rate and an epic effect of dealing lightning damage to nearby enemies, this puts the Vest of Dexterity in the top spot of the armor tier list. The pros: the increased dodge rate of 7% makes it extremely nice paired up with double serpent rings, which are the top rings in Archero. The increased dodge chance is extremely nice when it happens, resulting in you avoiding a lot of damage. You deal lightning damage to nearby monsters. The cons: the lightning damage to nearby enemies is not the best, just like the fire passive of the Golden Chestplate. It's a nice passive when you're in a sticky situation, but if you're pretty good at keeping a distance from monsters, it's just a passive that may not be used all the time. This makes the passive pretty useless against ranged monsters, as they have no reason to be close to you. And that is all for the gear and spirit tier list of Archero. Now, as I said earlier, this is all based on my own research, experience, and other players' opinions. What you choose to use will always be based on your playstyle, but in my opinion, the most viable combination of gear and spirits in Archero are Vest of Dexterity equipped with 2 serpent rings. For spirits, I would always have a laser bat equipped, both if I had 2 of them, otherwise the other slot can be taken by a Grim Reaper or an Elf Fairy. For weapons, I recommend watching my in-depth weapon tier list that I will link in the description box below. And some quick tips on Archero. Number 1, gear is only secondary to the RNG you get in Archero with your abilities. Good armor doesn't matter if you have a bad set of abilities. Number 2, grind, grind, and grind. In Archero, it's a very grinding heavy game. If you have trouble in your current chapter, feel free to farm the previous chapter. Number 3, the best way to avoid things is to watch your character, or is to watch in front of your character and not at the enemy. Number 4, make sure to make use of starter stepping. Let me know what armor, pets, and rings you think are the best. Feel free to like this video if you found this insightful. Please do subscribe and click the bell for more Archero content. Before I leave you here, I'm thinking of making Archero challenges videos, for example, pets only or using a level 1 weapon, etc. If you have any challenges for me, feel free to leave a suggestion in the comment box below. I thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you for the next one. Bye!